it's been 2 weeks, and we're just gonna hit the ground running. Right before the break, I played a Southern lawyer pretty well, and we showed a picture of a lawyer in a bolo tie. And many of you reached out and said a bolo tie would be more accurate for a Western or Southwestern lawyer. A bow tie would have been more appropriate for a Southern lawyer. And I do believe it was Southern lawyers who were upset about this because most of the comments began, "I take umbrage." The amount of umbrage. Oh, so obviously we all know that Mike Lindell got a cell phone seized at Hardee's. And so in yesterday's Closer Look, we basically said, what's next? Is he going to get his camera seized at Carl's Jr.? Hardee's and Carl's Jr., they have the same ownership. Minnesota only has a Hardee's. There wouldn't be a Carl's Jr. there. And the bummer about this is, and it bothers me, and you saw it, you heard it, Shoemaker, we have a producer on A Closer Look, Emily. She has a great attention to detail. And I heard her tell Sal, we're going to hear from the Jackals about this. If you put it in, but Sal, he just couldn't care less. I mean, he couldn't care less because Sal, who does, by the way, does a great job at A Closer Look. I have no complaints about his effort. But when he turns it in, he checks out. I mean, he slaps it, he just slaps it on the desk, walks out of the building, gets in his car service, goes right to the marina, gets in his boat, the Hotel California, he takes it downtown, meets all his Wall Street buddies as they're getting, like, they walk out of the trading floor and Sal's just waiting there like Wolf of Wall Street, Leo DiCaprio. Big wine, he's got a wraparound steps on his, like, boat, and he's like, "Hey, gentlemen." And they're like, "Sally, did you fight the plutocracy today?" And he's like, "Ha, ha, 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 ha. They're paying my bills, fellas." We showed this, and we referred to it as Jigsaw from the movie Saw. This is Billy the Puppet from the movie Saw, not the killer Jigsaw. This is a photo of Jigsaw. I was also told this. I referred to this as a quarter moon. It's a waning. You can call it a waning or a crescent. Sorry, a waning or a waxing crescent moon. You can, of course, also call it the last thing you see as the life is being choked out of you. I did an impression of a 19th century dandy choosing a Charleston Chew as his treat. And they said you couldn't, that wouldn't happen because the Charleston Chew wasn't invented until the 20th century, 1925. But bear with me, what if you were a 19th century dandy in England, and as a child, you know, you would get excited about candies, sweets. And then, you know, life takes you in a different path. You take a steamship to America, try to make your way there. You're older now, but still, you're in your youth. You were a dandy, and now it's 1925, and there's been a breakthrough in the confectionery industries, and you're presented with a Charleston Chew. Isn't it possible? Like the film Ratatouille, as you oft reference, Shoemaker. that moment of seeing it would bring you back to your 19th century and you'd be like, just use your imagination. Sometimes, like, we can do a lot of the work here, but we'd love if you could use your imagination for a little bit. I mimed someone doing CPR and giving mouth to mouth. I was told you don't do a mouth to mouth during CPR anymore, just compressions. So thanks, cancel culture. That brings me to this point. Someone wrote, they did not care for corrections. They had multiple comments about it, which meant they didn't care for it and stuck it out. At one point, They wrote, there are 5 people in the audience. Wow, all that wokeness is paying off, huh, Seth? Look, you can feel how you want to feel about corrections. But the idea that we want it to be full and can only get 5 people because it's too woke. Yeah. And we showed this photo of a gopher. And then a couple minutes later, we said, basically said a fella was trying to catch a gopher. And then the gopher stole his beer, and we showed a photo of this. And someone said, hey, not to be the person who knows a bunch about animals, but that might very well be a gopher, but that's definitely a woodchuck. So here's what's happened, okay? We write a closer look, and then, obviously these jokes go in, and then we reach out to our talent booker, and we're like, we need a gopher. And so we bring in this gopher, and he comes in, crushes it. He was great. Did exactly what we needed him to do, and then we're like, all right, now you gotta hold the beer. And he was like, oh. Like, I'm a Mormon. And we're like, what? And we were like, it's not even full of beer. And he's like, yeah, well, I got kids and, And we're like, oh, no, obviously, we respect that. And so we're like, we're gonna obviously have to bring somebody else in. And he's like, are you gonna have to use them for the first picture? Because I told a lot of people I was gonna be on tonight. And we're like, no, we can still use you for the first picture, because it's not like some psychopath's gonna be watching and be like, This guy, on the other hand, came in and kept drinking them. It was not a good scene when John and Jim were hauling him out. Look out for his teeth. Whole rest of the week, every time. Every time I walked to the office, kid. Someone said, I miss when Amber was there during corrections because I loved hearing her laugh. Oh, she's still here. Someone wrote, I'm a foreign viewer, and this whole time I thought the Mets and the Jets were the same thing. They're very different, but the usage is similar. Like if you're ever visiting New York and you say, Mets, am I right? Works the same with Jets. So during last week's correction, at one point, I said, hey, can you... Oh, there was a sound effect, and I wanted there to be a lightning and then the thunder sound effect, excuse me. And then after it played, I said, they wouldn't play the lightning sound effect. And a lot of you guys said, well, there wouldn't be... You mean thunder sound effect. There's no lightning sound effect. And what happened was I did want a thunder sound effect, but I accidentally said lightning. Not then, earlier in the day, I said to Alex, hey, will you play me a lightning sound effect? And he said, sure thing. And then it happened, and there was no sound effect. And then I went to him and said, why no sound effect? And he said, you asked for a lightning sound effect. And there isn't one. And I was like, so you thought I wanted nothing? Well, he just stared at me. Hey, go easy. We talked about when you see like ye old curiosity shop. It's not, you shouldn't say ye, you should say the old. Because there was a letter back in the day called a thorn, and it was close to a Y, and the thorn was the sound TH. When you say YE on ye, it's actually THE, the. And many of you pointed out that if Y is pronounced TH, that means that Kanye's new name isn't Ye, but the, which is, of course, short for the anti-Semitic. Why you gotta be so heartless? I'm taken aback at how well that worked. 1 week, you're getting no thunder sound effect. Mike Nesmith's mom from the Monkees did not. I said she invented whiteout. She invented liquid paper. Whiteout was invented by a woman named Barbara Dolans. Cheer up, Sleepy G. Oh my God. Oh. Well, woo, 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 woo. Hold on. So this is pretty cool. Someone sent in. All right, hold on. How am I going to do this? Not give it away. All right. So someone sent to our new P.O. box a note. They said for a while it seemed like Wally was getting all the fan art, which was true. We've shown a fair amount of Wally fan art. I didn't want there to be a weird monopoly where there was this gold sitting right there. This whole run-up, I thought it was going to be fan art, me fan art, right? Because there's been too much Wally, and it is my show. And but it was look at the Scollins fan art. TJ, thank you, TJ, for doing this. He also I mocked up an actual sleeveless shirt if the merch store runs out of Jackal mugs. So I'm wondering if this is, you would get this printed on a tank top. I think that would be pretty cool. But then I should note there's this is a wonderful, and I hope Pim, I think is the name of the artist for this, from Thailand, sent this painting of me. How great is that? And I'm really touched by this, and it got a very lovely compliment. I brought this home and I showed my wife, and she said the sweetest thing. She said, "You should keep that at the office." Guess he sees enough of my mug. And then, you guys, I mean, we have talked about this, but we have our P.O. box, and it's just, we are getting a lot of postcards. And as I told you, that is a legal problem because look at this. This stack alone, that's just Europe. I mean, it's amazing what we're getting. This is so, look at that. That's Washington Square Park. The Loch Ness Monster, that's so exciting. Malta? Kidding me? Malta? And they're coming in from all over. But like I said, there's a problem because I guess I should not have said we're going to do a postcard drawing because due to the legal rules, according to the legal department, that is a problematic thing, and we might be in the jackpot, so to speak. But then I talked to the legal team, who are not kind people. And also, I try not to call them because every time I do, they bill me. But I said, well, wait, hold on, I have an idea because, the thing is, all I said was send them in, and then I'm going to do a postcard drawing. And then I realized maybe there's a way out of this. Maybe legally, I could just do this. I could just what if I did a drawing of a postcard? We'll see. But again, here's the thing that I really want to stress. You got to stop sending postcards because it's a problem for me. It's legal exposure, so just forget you ever heard P.O. Box 4748, New York, New York. 10185, because it has not been good for me. Go easy on John, though. You guys, I am really happy to be back with you, and I really do hope that you all see me next week.